Hi, it's Jessie. I'm back again. And yesterday I was talking to you about how the church is compromised, right? How it's lost its teeth, its stake in the world, you know? Um, Way back when in time, the only path to salvation was believed to be born as a Jew. And they went through, like I said, many of exchanges in between salvation, redemption, and exile, being left out in the cold, you know? And the reason for this, I believe, is because the table you set is the table you've got to keep. So the laws you set on one side are not just for you, but they're laws that you will, at some point in time, have to experience yourself. So, when you have a law for the in group and a law for the outside that says power of agreement rules over you, then at some point in time you're going to be rolled over by this power of agreement. It sucks, but that's the table that was set way back when, right? Um, I can I can go through and tell you about the four exiles that Israel experienced, but that's a very long story, you know. I'd rather tell you about the last one, right? Because when Israel's in exile, what they're hoping for is a Messiah to come, someone who will set order back into the world and put them back in their uh, place of salvation, right? Believe it or not, this happened a long time ago. A Messiah came, but he wasn't recognized. And no, I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm talking about Judas Maccabee, you know. There's this place in Scripture that says one could put a thousand to flight, you know, and five can put the whole world to flight, or something to that effect. It's like reign in the world and bring it under control, right? So there was five in the Maccabee family, and the Hashmonean boys, whatever you want to call them, you know. Um, there was Mattathias, who was Judas Maccabee's father, and the story about Mattathias is not clear, and where their revolt came up, where they came up to topple the empire, that story is also not clear. See, because way back when there was an enemy who ruled by saying, bow to me and then go do whatever you want. Bow to me and do whatever you want. And anyone who doesn't bow to me, we attack those people, right? Um, for like a Jew, it's necessary for you to keep the laws of the country you're in, right? But it's also necessary for you to keep Torah. So with the Jewish people in this whole mix way back when, there's confusion there. It's kind of like Jesus said, pay to Caesar what's Caesar's and pay to God what's God's. You can't have these things, you know. You can't have these things together. You can't pay to Caesar what's Caesar's and you can't pay to God what's God's, because when you lift up Caesar, what happens is Caesar's got this rule. He says, bow to me. Bow to me and you can do whatever you want. I'm not going to rule over you. I'm going to tax you, but I'm not going to, come out there and govern you, you know? And so where they're like, where the Jews are like in this conundrum between paying to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and paying to God what belongs to God. The government is making these rules over them to undermine their faith and their Torah. They're forbidding Torah to be taught. They're pulling the houses off of doors. Oh, when you pull a door off a house, you take away privacy. Like we have this concept in America, that a man is king of his castle. He has eminent domain over his household. And if you want to violate that right, then you need a warrant. You need a court order. You just can't go in and take. So this concept, as we could understand it, is like mass surveillance, and this happens in America today, where they spy on you through your TV, through your cell phone. They've taken the doors off. They've eliminated privacy, and though many people don't mind it because it's not affecting them, when it does affect them, they'll see what a problem it is, because they don't just violate your privacy. They come in and they undermine and they sabotage you. You know, with your cell phone, maybe you use it for an alarm clock, and they make it so your alarms don't go off for you. They make it so emails don't come through, so text messages don't come through. They play with your privacy, and then they undermine and sabotage you. So if you could understand the dangers of their surveillance and their hold on us today, then you can understand that this is the same problem they were dealing with way back when, right? Now, some of the Jews jumped ship to avoid the harassment, and they said, let's go over to this Greek way of living with the gyms and the schools, Let's go over here, because as long as we're participating over here, they don't bother us. We can do whatever we want to do. We could still be Jews, but we have to pay homage, pay to Caesar what is Caesar's, right? We have to do this part, right? When the Maccabees came up, right, one of the stories was that they were being forced to eat pig, and Mattathias rose up and cut down the soldiers. Another story was they were forcing Mattathias' daughter to go spend the night with the governor, because this was another law that they passed, where a woman, before she could be married, had to spend the night with the governor. Women being trafficked, basically legally sanctioned trafficked, right? And that was the way that it was, and it was said that they rose up after that. Story's not clear in the beginning. You see, you can't get clarity in the story because this enemy plays with the narrative. He goes out and he ruins reputations. He weaponizes people against people. He weaponizes government against people, When they changed the laws where women had to spend the night with the governor before they could be married, this was them weaponizing the law against the people, right? They also outlawed the mikvah, which is basically ritual bathing, that women had to go and spend some time in the mikvah before they could be intimate with their husbands after having that time of the month, And one thing that happened there was that God opened the ground, and natural pools of water came up, Everybody's like got this argument of the Torah is from God, and here's all the proof, But really, if you look at what happened with the Maccabees, with this, with the, I can't say the word. Why can't I say the word? It's like a Syrian Greek, right? When these people were ruling things way back when, you you start to see some parallels between their age and our age, right? Our time, And you start to understand this was a scenario in which people needed to be delivered from. And the Maccabees came up, and this empire fell, And when they were almost sizzled out, then they came and they pretended they wanted to be friends. And they said, come, let me honor you. Let me give this dinner in your service with Simon, And they poisoned him, and he died. And it wasn't long after that there was so much infighting within the community, because a new leader had not yet been prepared, and Simon died before it was his time to go. So this kind of ruined the whole redemption thing, but we don't understand it because it's so far removed from us, right? But if you understand the notion of weaponizing awards, um, when I was in grad school, right, I did research projects. I did research projects all the time. But one particular research project, my team didn't complete, and I got an award for it. Now, there was someone else who was well deserving of the award. She put in a lot of hard work, right? But they gave me the award, you know? And I didn't understand why they were giving me the award at the time. But then I understand when you're using honor, when you're weaponizing honor, you're giving people credit that they don't deserve as a means to take credit from them, your credibility from you with the people around you who see the injustice of you being lifted up, and not just that, it puts them in a position where they look like their friends. It puts them in a position where where your enemy looks like they're supporting you, but really they're poisoning you. And I've seen this award thing go on with my children as well. My daughter, when we first moved here, she was given an award for most improved student, and she was always a good kid. Always a good kid. So it didn't make sense that they should give her that award. But it tells a story to the people around you. They weaponize honor in this way. My daughter was an amazing artist. She's always been an amazing artist. And she didn't get an award for her art. The kid who got an award for his art, him and his mom came up to me and were like, Livy deserved that award. She deserved it because she was always drawing cartoons and making little pictures, drawing portraits of all her classmates. You know, she was young, she was talented, she was gifted. And the boy was like, I can't even draw stick figures, and they gave me an award for art. Now, I shouldn't have had this award. Livy should have. So it just goes to show, they use these awards to like undermine and sabotage you, because maybe these people, when they came up to me and told me how undeserving they were and how deserving Livy was, maybe they were trying to provoke my response to complain about the injustice. And what these people want is for someone to complain, because if you can take a swipe at them, they can justify running you down. It's ridiculous, the things that they do. It's incredibly difficult to fight. It's incredibly difficult to catch, and incredibly difficult to fight. But when you see it over and over and over again on repeat through your life and your children's life, you start to understand, oh, this is their standard tactic. And where did they get off with this nonsense? If you go back to the days of the Maccabees, where they poisoned Simon by throwing him a banquet, then you understand who set the standard in the world for this. This is the way that the enemy rules. If you take the Jew out of position, if you take them into exile, you rule over them by the standard that you took them down. So way back when, right, one of the things that they did was they sowed division in the house, you know. And the Jewish people, they don't believe that Judas Maccabeus was the Messiah. They think that the dynasty was a disaster. But then they don't understand like what they were facing, and they don't understand that we're still facing the same thing, because they partner with the enemy without realizing, having all this trouble out in the world, and not realizing that the enemy supports you so that people will hate you, not realizing that the enemy divides your house and divides people against you, that they got very clever tricks to use while pretending that, they're supporting you, they're honoring you, they're your friend. And you can't see it, right? You can't see it because the world is dark. The world is dark. You can't see that light that you think you're holding on to is not a light at all. It's like It's like one of those torches that they used to burn witches with, It's not meant for your betterment. It's meant to take you out. They set you on fire. They're not lighting your way, they're setting you on fire. And that's just utterly ridiculous. So, some more parallels between then and now, right? Um, Judas Maccabees, like way back when, he was known as God's hammer, right? And way back when, he was their little tiny army against this huge empire. It's like the equivalent of like the size of Gaza going up against like the U.S. and defeating them. I'm not even gonna compare like Gaza with Israel because that's not even a comparison. Israel's not big enough to be an empire, right? But the American empire. So you have to understand it. It's the equivalent of a small nation. They they weren't even in the millions there, going up against millions. You know, um, it's it's it looks like they're gonna lose. It looks like they're gonna die, but it it works out in their favor. Why? Because God is fighting with them, and when God is fighting with you, He kind of one, He gives you favor with your enemies, which can confuse your mind. You gotta have some discernment when God is giving you favor with your enemies versus when your enemy is cuddling up to you to kill you, right? Then the other thing, your enemy dies on the way to you. Like God struck down the kings who were coming to take them out because they were so mad with the Maccabees that they couldn't beat them. And they were like, forget this, I'll do it myself. And they go out there and they die on their way from dysentery, irritable bowel syndrome, diarrhea. They they die on their way, right? They couldn't kill them, right? Parallel to now. Well, not now, but a few hundred years ago. Um, to understand that when America was originally founded, we were this small group of men going up against an empire. The UK, United Kingdom, they were absolutely huge. They were a world power, the only world power. They took down nations, they took down kingdoms. And here we had some men who didn't even have their own country, and they were fighting for their freedom. You know, what's his name? Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death, you know, protesting what these people were doing. They wanted their freedom. They wanted to be free of these things, right? So we got George Washington fighting, you know, my great-great-great-grandfather, William West, fighting right alongside of him. You find his names in the papers, right? All these politicians, they like to cite, our founding fathers and the armies that fought with them. But in actuality, they don't even get the gravity of what was done, right? Those are my ancestors. I get it, right? Um, so you got this small group of men going up against this empire. And while George Washington was in battle, if you watch some documentaries, you'll find that George Washington had bullet holes in his coats quite often, right? Near death, but a miss. In war, shot many times through his coat, but never through his body. That was God with him, right? We got the Maccabees way back when, seemed to be undefeatable. It seemed like they were bulletproof, even though they weren't fighting with bullets back then. Then we got George Washington, a couple hundred years ago, also bulletproof. We have this small group of men taking down an empire, right? We should have had freedom. We should have had freedom. But instead of having freedom, we lost our way because we didn't understand. We made peace with the empire and we became allies, especially through the world wars. We became allies and we stopped recognizing, the reasons we separated from them, and we started taking their advice as far as policy goes and building our nation in a mirror image of the empire that we had overthrown off our necks way back when, right? This is this is the same struggle that the Maccabees, the Hashmonean dynasty, faced. The country's unrecognizable within a few generations back then and unrecognizable now, you know, where they set forth our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. They did these things because of the way that England was governed, because of the way that the UK was governed, right? When you understand, you know, people have a right to this. No taxation without representation. We understand that. We all want a representative government. We see people saying affirmative action. We need more black people in Congress. We need more Mexicans in Congress. And the state responds to it because it's like, you bow to us, we give you whatever you want. And I'm not saying that affirmative action is wrong, but I am saying that they're not lifting you up when they bring you into their house. What they're doing is subduing you. And you don't understand it because you're not fighting for liberty or representation there. You're getting in with business as usual. You know, they have a whole different kind of culture in D.C., you know. And one congressman who just retired or is in the process of retiring, he says that Congress is going way downhill, you know. He says Congress is not recognizable, you know. When you understand what he's talking about, you understand that they have this business where they're ruled through the power of agreement instead of laws, and they don't see the value in people. They see the value in what they can get out of people, how much they can take from people. And it's kind of why you see the tax schedule the way it is, you know, because these wealthy people will pay into their campaign funds and whatnot, you know. But it should not be the way that it is. We don't have entitlements as we did. We hear Trump talking about we're going to go after the criminals, right? We're not cutting Social Security. We're just going to eliminate the waste, the fraudsters. And when I think about what I went through with Social Security, where they tried to make me look like a fraudster, you know, I grew up with a hard life. You know, no one should have had to endure what I had to endure. I had no place to rest. I had everyone lying to me, everyone gaslighting me, no justice. You know, everybody seeing what they could take from me while making me the problem. You know, it was something that broke me, you know, mind, body, spirit, way back when. But I'm not a child anymore now. So I can recognize that the stuff that happened to me when I was a kid is the same stuff that they were doing to me over here. I can recognize, you know. It's hard to explain to you. Um, let's see. If they pin you down and they curse your face, they spit on you, they tell you no one will ever love you, you know. And then they get up and they go around to everybody and tell everybody how bad you are. This was something that happened when I was little, right? Fast forward to where I'm an adult. They pin you down. They make you do what they want to do. You step out of line, they whip you. They tell you let it be, and they'll leave you be, but you won't have liberty or freedom. They'll silence you. They'll keep on hitting you. They'll make it so you have no allies. They'll make it so you have no friends, so that everyone around you is cursing you and calling you evil. When you understand that it's no different, you're using the same tactic. And where did this tactic come from? Way back when? Way back when with the Maccabees, and way back when with the UK, right? That's why we get these things. I have a right to life, a right to liberty, a right to the pursuit of happiness, right? I have a right to be heard. I have a right to freedom of speech, right? I have a right to defend myself, the right to bear arms. I have a right, to get news unfiltered, you know, to have truth in news where the news isn't brainwashing you, right? Freedom of press, right? We we lose all that thing. The press runs a narrative. I like NBC, right? But I'm aware that NBC is like democratic media, just like RT is Russian sanctioned media. You know, um, when when you have these things, it's real hard to find truth in the news that you hear, which is why our founding fathers were like freedom of press. We have a right to these things. If we want a good country, we honor these things, we preserve these things, we fight for these things. Give me my freedom or give me death. You will not pin me down. I will not serve you. I will not let it be. You know? You will not take my life and stop short of my breath. If you're going to take my life, you must take my breath too. Try me, I know what was in the Maccabees. I know what was in George Washington. I know what was in my ancestors. I know why this country was built, I have this clear understanding, you know. They keep telling me, am I a Messiah for the Jews? I keep telling them, no, I'm a new covenant. My ancestors built this country, right? My ancestors. William West, you know. I can go down the line with people. Every one of my grandfathers fought in the war, down from William West. Fought in some war in this country, defending it, building it, establishing justice. The Civil War. I had ancestors on both sides, with both the Confederate and the Union, I had both sides fighting for what was right. But what they really needed to recognize was not being ruled by opinion of having their way. What they really needed to recognize was that the law must be preserved. And where our forefathers said that all men are created equal, they meant all men. And you don't get to disqualify a man based on the color of his skin or his religion, because we're guaranteed freedom of religion, all men endowed by their creator certain unalienable rights, you know? So we shouldn't have had this fight over pick a side, but we should have been more diligent in safeguarding the laws. The problem with somebody establishing the nation for you, right? Somebody doing the work for you, and then peace coming along. You make peace with your enemies, they start running you. They start running you, and you start taking on their ideas. And I get it that slavery was a part of building our nation, not just with the African people, but with like the Irish, right? I get it. I had an ancestor way back when who ran a slave ship, but I also had ancestors who were slaves, you know. I got I got the full package back there, right? So in me, it's like I can pick sides over what's right, what's wrong, who did right, where was it right, how do you fix it, why are we not at peace? And we're not at peace because we're not choosing to be lawful people. We're not choosing. We're compromising and being ruled by opinions, and what we consider as right today through opinion is subject to change tomorrow. We might have an epiphany, you know. We can't be ruled in these ways, When we are ruled in these ways, we divide our whole nation. When we're like, pick a side, we collapse upon ourselves, We we can't be this way. There can be no compromise. We we don't pick sides of what is right and wrong in this way. There are courts to decide those matters if necessary. That's the purpose of courts, so that we don't have to have these all-out wars, you know. You settle matters when they're small, and they don't fester into, big old tumors. You pop them when there's zits, right? The heck, people, there's, you gotta stop compromising for stuff. I can't compromise for stuff. I, I didn't suffer everything I suffered to cover the snakes who did what they did to me, you know? Yeah, my covenant is suffer for God, but that's not license for anybody. I live in a nation that says I have these rights, you know? So I have to talk about it, and I not only have to talk about it for my own benefit, to remain upright, but I have to talk about it for other people's benefit. Because you allow these people to rule over you without realizing that when they rule you by opinion, what they're doing is robbing you. And you don't realize it. You don't realize it because you think you're strong as judge. But you have to understand that you are not equipped to be a judge. You don't know how to judge yet. And on my next video, I'm going to talk to you about judgments. But for right now, I say no compromise. No compromise. We're not letting it be. We're going to draw this thing out until it's over. We're going to talk until you bow. Not because I need you to bow before me, but because I need you to understand where you went wrong and get back to the right path. I don't need you to bow before me. I need you to do right. And that's all I'm going to say for today. Y'all have a good day. Well, I'll be back actually, but that's for this video.